is the duty of the free man to resist tyranny at every turn. Every man will either watch his freedom stripped away or take action to protect what he loves. Introducing the A3, the newest revolutionary body armor from Armored Republic. The A3 is the new standard for lightweight multi-hit body armor. A3 plates are incredibly light at 4.6 pounds. The patented design captures fragmentation while remaining multi-hit capable. The A3 will stop up to M80 ball, yet comes in at only 0.7 inches thick. The A3 is the thinnest NIJ .06 compliant or certified composite standalone plate that includes the drop test. The A3 is the first of its kind, patent pending, that combines an alloy strike face with polyethylene backing, revolutionizing body armor technology by providing strength and durability while remaining sleek and maneuverable. The A3 is the new standard in lightweight body armor. The fight against tyranny just got stronger.
Is the music on yet, Knox?
It is.
Okay, it's on. All right.
It's playing now.
Hey, y'all. Welcome to CrossPolitic. Good to be with you. We're in northern Idaho, even farther up in the chimney in Coeur d'Alene. We're at Trinity Church, Pastor Stewart's church, part of the CREC.
That's right.
We're actually
Thank you, Pastor Stewart.
filming at his church. He might be coming in and out counseling people.
Yeah.
So just ignore Pastor Stewart on that. So, of course, you guys know Knox, Pastor Toby. I'm the water boy. We also got Blaine Conzatti on. He's been with us on a number of times. He's the Idaho Family Policy Center.
Stop.
Is that
I'm doing it. Blaine Conzatti.
I wasn't ready to introduce him.
Oh, you're not introducing him yet? You started introducing him.
I was just names. We'll get into people.
You said Idaho Family
Policy Center. Okay, all right. and then I got Seth, CEO of Babylon Bee, and what was the line that I really liked?
No.
You want to read that?
You're trying to steal the intros.
Okay, I'm not going to get
You told me to do the intros. Seth Dillon is trafficker in misinformation under the guise of satire.
That's what I wanted to say.
Currently CEO of the Babylon Bee, co-founder of Not the Bee, entrepreneur, venture investor, speaker, humorist, and a recent convert to Calvinism.
Venture investor, is that what you said?
Fake news.
Fake news.
He says he's a super Calvinist. He lives with his wife and 2 sons in Juno Beach, Florida. We're grateful to have you on CrossPolitic.
Grateful to be here.
And Blaine Conzatti left a lucrative career as a rock and jazz musician.
Did he?
To enter public policy.
It actually says lucrative in the notes. Was it really lucrative?
Oh, so lucrative.
Look at that jacket, man. Look at it. He now serves as president of the Idaho Family Policy Center here in the great state of Idaho, the only explicitly Christian policy center in the state.
Yeah, they do.
In the U.S. or just the state?
In the state.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
I would like to say the U.S.
But and currently is embroiled in fighting the trans drag clown show, which we're very thankful and proud of you for doing. So,
Thank you.
Gabe, kick it off.
That kind of gets us. The reason why we actually have Seth and Blaine on is because in Idaho, particularly right now, we're kind of dealing with the trans, particularly drag show under 12-year-old problem.
Men twerking in front of kids at public parks.
Yeah, apparently 13 and over is not.
Some states have bear problems and environmental problems.
And we have 12 and under drag problems.
In a conservative state, by the way.
Yeah, in a red state.
Yeah, in a red state. But I remember. I mean, I was born in 1979, and I know. I remember the Beatles. Not really. And homosexuality and homosexual marriage was not a big deal, but they were arguing at that time. They were starting to argue in the 80s. They were starting to argue for civil unions, which they eventually got. I think that was in was it Vermont 2000 when they got that? I had it in my notes.
It was one of the early ones. Yeah.
And then they finally got Obergefell in 2015, and then 2 months after Obergefell came, the polygamists in Utah and Nevada were crying foul.
Right.
And then I think it was, within that year, 2015, 16. Well, actually, if you remember, 2012, they changed the definition of transgenderism not being a psychological disorder anymore.
Oh, is that when they dropped that?
That was, I believe, it was in 2012.
Okay.
And that was the APA definition.
Right.
And so we've seen this in my lifetime. This, fast, slippery slope right into transgenderism.
And now drag queens twerking for underage
for
children.
underage 12. It's just amazing how fast and more we've declined morally.
It's family friendly though.
It is. Well,
Don't worry.
You see all the footage.
Don't
though.
worry.
Seth, not they French, right?
but you actually see all the footage at like the bars and stuff. It's like moms bringing their kids. It's crazy.
But it does say family friendly.
It does.
It does say
Yeah.
family
So
friendly.
it's
Hard to argue with that.
all right, dude, right.
But then Christians come along like the Babylon Bee, and we kind of colorfully, serratedly try to point out the craziness behind this transgender stuff, and then we get attacked for not being nice. So
From Christians.
Which is actually why we're having this conversation, Seth. We want this is a
We're confronting you.
We're confronting you with the lack of winsomeness and niceness.
Intervention.
Yeah, this is an intervention.
Yeah, intervention. And our and so the language that Christian, it's like they can emasculate 12-year-olds. They can abort and kill and take away and sell body parts from babies, and then we come along and point out in a colorful manner, like a prophet, like Ezekiel, like Elijah, point out in a colorful manner that, hey, look what you're doing is wicked and evil. And then Christians attack Christians for not being nice. Right. And that's what you got with Russell Moore and some of these other larger evangelical, Ed Stetzer and some of these larger evangelicals who are making that argument. So,
Speaking of prophets.
So
you're a prophet.
Yeah. And you're kind of like, we look at you as like Obadiah, right? So Obadiah had he hid his prophets in the cave. You remember that?
I do.
And so you're like the head prophet. And then you got all these Babylon Bee guys that you got in caves that you're trying to keep safe, and you're feeding them, right? You're feeding them. You're paying their salaries. You feed Kyle.
We do occasionally pay them. When they start complaining, we'll pay them.
Just like Obadiah.
You'll bring them bread and water. So do you kind of see a little bit of what you're doing is kind of being prophetic in that sense? Not we aren't talking about,
I mean, it's an old thing, it's Shakespeare who said, "Jesters do oft prove prophets," right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, jokes ride on the back of the truth, and so and it's one of those things that we get criticized for is having jokes that are too believable, but jokes have to be true or they're not funny.
Right.
That's what makes them funny. So when you're riding on the back of the truth, sometimes the truth catches up to you, and if you're heading at breakneck speed towards insanity and absurdity, then your exaggerations of the truth don't stay exaggerations for very long. So
they become real.
People constantly hold my beer.
Yeah.
And
happens a lot. Yeah, we track it. We have dozens and dozens of them.
But did you prophesy that you're going to get kicked off Twitter?
I figured we would get kicked off Twitter eventually.
Yeah.
It was only a matter of time because.
Are you going to get reinstated on Friday?
That's the question.
It's very possible. I don't know how quickly that will happen, but it's looking like the Musk deal is a done deal now. He's at Twitter headquarters today.
Yeah.
So.
With a sink.
Did you see him walk in with a sink?
Yeah. Let that sink in.
Yeah.
He's like acting out a meme right now.
I know, right?
He's got a great sense of humor.
Speaking of prophets, acting things out. Here, this is my sink.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't predict how it would happen, when it would happen, whatever. But I figured that eventually one of our guys would make a joke that was interpreted the wrong way or was worded the wrong way. They don't run it all by me. We don't have a discussion about every joke. The joke that we got locked out for, I didn't review before it went up there.
What was it?
It was the assistant secretary.
Yeah, it was Rachel Levine, the transgender health admiral.
Oh, yeah.
USA Today named Rachel Levine Woman of the Year. And then...
Just fake news.
And then we
which is real
misinformation.
That's fake news, harmful misinformation. We a slap in the face to women everywhere.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And we responded to that by naming Rachel Levine Man of the Year.
Right.
So,
right.
And Twitter's like, delete.
Yeah, Twitter said that was hateful conduct, but what they said, they didn't delete it. And this is where it goes kind of beyond just censorship. Censorship would have been them taking it down and saying you can't say that on our platform. But what they did was they sent us a notice and said that if we want to use the platform again, we have to delete that tweet and acknowledge that we engaged in hateful conduct.
You have to
we have to do that.
We do penance.
We have to admit that we were wrong.
Right.
Isn't it by deleting the tweet yourself? So they make you delete the tweet, and that is a confirmation.
Yeah,
that's repentance.
Yeah. Right.
We want repentance.
Did you have to come on your knees?
They want you to
as
bend
well?
the knee. Yeah, they want you to bend the knee, kiss the ring, whatever. So we refused to do that, and so we've been locked out of Twitter ever since March.
Is your account still there?
Still there.
It's still there, and that tweet is still there.
I could delete it right now while we're talking. but we've refused to delete it because
Right.
we don't want to admit that we engaged in hateful conduct.
Right.
The thing is, our joke was actually, this is where it goes back to being rooted in the truth, right? The joke we made was that Rachel Levine is Man of the Year. Well, I mean, Rachel Levine is an adult human male, which is the dictionary definition of man.
Right.
Right.
So our joke was true.
Right.
And
So it wasn't just a joke.
And USA
it was
Today
true.
was false.
I know.
Yeah.
USA Today's statement was actually like factually inaccurate.
Right.
Yeah.
Our joke was true, but the truth is now hate speech.
Yeah.
So that's a disconcerting place to be in.
Yeah.
But we're not going along with that and admitting that the truth is hate
Right.
speech. We're
Right.
saying we're standing our ground and saying no, the truth is not hate speech, and we're not going to admit that it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, and in the world we're living in, I mean, thank you.
Yeah.
Like, thank you for not caving, because far too many Christians get told, hey, that hurt my feelings. That
Yeah.
wasn't nice. A lot of people were.
Yeah, and they apologize.
And then they apologize
whatever.
and grovel.
Yeah.
And that's how we got here. Blaine, you run the Idaho Family Policy Center here in Idaho. You have also run into the loving tranny drag queen buzzsaw.
Yes.
Tell us how that's going in Idaho. What's the latest on that?
Well, so up in Coeur d'Alene this past summer, a biologically male drag performer exposed his genitalia on stage, fell out of his women's panties while he was strip teasing at the public park.
But was it
on
family
stage.
friendly?
Of course it was. That's
Okay.
what the city flyers said. It was family friendly.
Oh my gracious.
He is suing a blogger up here in Coeur d'Alene who took video of the incident and then released that video. He's suing her for defamation. And just craziness. We launched a petition on this issue a couple months ago when down in Boise, the Boise Pride Festival was considering having a kids drag event where they were going to have children on stage dressed in drag, engaging in sexually explicit behavior on stage. We launched a petition. We got to take care of this. We've actually had one of the Pride festivals contact us and tell us that we are actively defaming them because of our petition and demanding that we apologize, of course, and retract the petition, which we're not going to do because, let's be honest, drag does not belong in public places where children are present.
Right, man.
But Blaine, don't you think, is law really going to fix the long-term problem here? I mean, because I feel like in some sense we're losing having to codify, drag shows under 12 years old, making that illegal. We're losing trying to codify that in the law.
Why don't obscenity laws already completely drive this out?
Yeah, so we used to have a law in the books dealing with cross-dressing. That was gotten rid of in the 1970s after a Supreme Court decision said that you have a constitutional right to cross-dress. So the obscenity,
speech?
yes, free speech, free expression.
Wow.
So your dress is part of your expression that's protected by the First Amendment, no matter how crazy it is.
So then I didn't have to wear a mask.
There we go. There we go. So our obscenity laws are woefully inadequate to address this problem. I agree with you. I mean, this is a cultural issue. It's exposing the deep rot. The fact that parents are taking kids to these events, that's deep rot in our culture for sure. However, our laws need to protect public virtue. Our laws need to protect public morality, and they need to protect the innocence of kids and make sure, this does not belong in public parks.
So you got people who are saying, well, these are my kids. If I want to take them to this event, why are you stopping me from taking my kids to an event that I think that they need to experience? What gives you the right to make laws to stop me from raising kids the way that I want to raise my kids? I don't stop you from raising kids the way that you want to raise your kids.
Yeah, we don't allow kids to go to strip clubs. We don't allow kids to go to adult movie stores. We recognize that there are certain places, right? Kids need to be protected from aberrant forms of sexuality. We've long recognized that. In fact, our state constitution identifies that the first responsibility of good government is to protect the purity of the home and to protect public virtue. And we need to get back to that.
Purity of the home.
Purity of the home.
So do they define what purity of the home is?
They don't, but we can look at our history and tradition in our constitutional system, and part of that would be things like aberrant, deviant sexual behaviors, right? These don't belong in public.
But it does, after it says purity of the home, it does go on and talk about marriage and family.
Right.
And obviously back then it was assuming marriage between a man and a woman.
Part of the problem
define it.
Part of the problem we're running into though is it was interesting to watch that Boise Pride episode, that situation where the kids' drag show got canceled.
It did.
There was enough of a backlash, which was, wow, okay, like we can actually do something.
But didn't a kid still make it on stage or something?
They did. Yep.
still
We
did
had
it.
kids up on stage with the drag performers in women's lingerie, totally, not nudity, but exposing themselves in sexual ways. We had over 26,000 Idahoans use our action center to send emails to the sponsors of Boise Pride, asking them to cut ties with Boise Pride. A lot of sponsors did. A lot of sponsors buckled down, and we Idaho Family Policy Center ended up getting canceled from our CRM and our advocacy platform because, in part, of that discrimination against the LGBT community.
Babylon Bee, they made their own CRM platform, and maybe you could help them out.
There we go.
Our own CRM.
I think I remember talking to.
For delivering emails and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a full suite like you probably had with your service provider.
Yeah.
But the point is, you guys had to
but if you
build
pay
your
us
own
a lot of money, we'll
infrastructure.
do it. Sure.
You guys got canceled from MailChimp.
Yeah.
Right? And so you guys had to build your own infrastructure for this.
The thing that I want to point out, though, is again, like, we've been having these Pride events, and then it's the kids is when finally everybody's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Bridge too far.
What are you're gonna do that with our kids? And the thing that I keep wanting to press on conservatives and Christians is like, okay, I get that. I mean, I feel that, and I'm grateful. Like, yeah, don't do that to the kids. But you can't say that this is a perfectly reasonable life choice for an adult, and then deny them the right to talk to kids about it.
That's right.
If it's an actual option, like among the options that you can choose as an upstanding citizen of this country or this state, you can be a Christian man or a woman or a lesbian or a bisexual or a transsexual, whatever.
But if you're 12 and under.
But you can't say then, but you can't talk to kids about those options if those are actually options.
Yeah.
Well, what about like gambling? Like adults, you can go to casinos and gamble, or they can buy alcohol or whatever. But it's still restricted. Kids can't do it.
Right.
And they're
don't
never
let
going
my
to be
kid.
allowed to do it. And no one's really trying to argue that kids should be allowed to come to casinos and also gamble.
Right.
I mean, you have a clear separation there, and it can be maintained.
Right. But morally, is there anything wrong with if a mom brings her 5-year-old and does a few slots with their 5-year-old? Are we saying there's something morally problematic with that?
Well, I mean, kids have always been restricted from gambling. I'm sure you could make a moral argument against gambling for children.
I mean,
it's not a very wise way to teach your kids about financial management, right?
But I guess my point is that I'm a pastor. I'm not.
I think he's advocating for child gambling.
That's what he said. I heard it, Seth.
I heard it.
But my point is that the moral line runs. It's the same line running all the way through. So my objection to an adult gambling, it would be the same as a kid gambling. It's not like it's fine for you to completely, throw away your life savings when you're, 20, 21 or whatever age is okay. But at 7, you can't. No, I would be against the sin of being
foolishness,
fiscally irresponsible across the board.
Yeah.
Whereas, I'm saying in this case with transgenderism or sexual immorality, it's a sin across the board.
Right.
And you can't say it's okay here, and then say, you may not talk to your kids about that.
It's the David French problem.
What's the David French problem?
You remember he was advocating that a good classical liberal society should have no problem
of
with
drag queens in libraries.
The blessings of liberty.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the blessings of liberty, classical
Don't
liberty.
say that. Stop it. I almost forgot that he said that. The blessings of liberty.
Blaine, what do you think is driving the whole transgender movement right now? And I guess what's driving it, and then what do you think is coming next if it gets what it wants legally?
Yeah, I think it's a slippery slope that's a lot slipperier than we ever realized, right? I don't think anyone would have thought, conservatives for decades leading up to Obergefell said that gay marriage would end up here. I don't think anyone realized how fast we would end up here, right? Where you have kids on stage twerking next to grown men who, let's be honest, and I know this is hard content, but the scientific literature shows drag is a sexual fetish. And when kids are in the audience, when they're on stage, when they're participating in that, there are huge ethical concerns with that, right? So that slippery slope was a lot slipperier than we ever realized. And we need to do everything we can to protect those kids.
What do you think's coming after
I mean,
it?
isn't this a setup for? I mean, aren't we just talking about the next letter being
Pedophilia.
P?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you just saw, in New York, man, a couple weeks ago, where the housing board recognized a polyamorous relationship for the purpose of housing. I mean, we're heading in that direction so quick. Of course, pedophilia, bestiality, all these things. I mean, that's where it goes.
Christopher Rufo, what's the guy's name?
Christopher
Rufo.
Rufo.
That guy did a great article just a couple days ago on the history of drag. And he traces it just crystal clear that from jump, it was about pushing sexual limits into pedophilia and bestiality.
Wow.
It's not even hidden. Like, it's in published works. It's a great article, and it's terrifying.
The Marxist idea of deconstructing
Right.
sexual morality,
Right.
By pushing those limits, by being a revolutionary, doing things that are
Transgressive.
totally transgressive, so that you destroy the traditional family and all the morality that supports it.
I think we're getting, this goes back to kind of what Pastor Toby was saying. I think we get the understanding of mutilating children. I think we get the understanding of, kids on stage doing twerking and the whole drag thing. But then we don't look at the gay pride and say, wait a second, that is just as immoral. We shouldn't even have gay pride. That should be illegal. Right? Like, why do we have gay pride events? This is what's leading to that. Why are we looking at all that and say, well, what's the cause of this, and going all the way to the root of the problem and saying, oh, we have gay pride events. Well, what's causing that? Why wouldn't we say, okay, we got to stop, no more gay pride parades?
Well, I think
in
that
America.
it shows you how much conservatives and Christians have been pushed to where our line is now.
Right.
It used to be. I remember back in growing up in Texas, my dad and we'd go hand out tracts at parades like that. And we knew that was wrong then.
Right.
Yeah, but
But I think it's part of, like, so you remember the shop teacher in Canada, goes to class with the big prosthetic, massive chest, and finally all these Canadians are like,
That's a bridge too far.
that's a bridge too far. Trudeau's horses trampling over our people, and the
Right.
trucker convoy, not a big deal. But the massive prosthetic, breasted dude in shop class, and it's because we've been conditioned and we haven't been exercising our faith to push back.
So, Seth, like when we talk about, every time we talk about this, all I can see, like, blackface in America is clear. Like, can't nobody run around with blackface on without anybody saying, whoa, bro, that is racist, you need to take it off. Like the whitest dude, country bumpkin dude, back in the backwoods, would be
Downey
like, hey,
Jr.
boy,
got
what
in
you
trouble.
doing? You can't run around here looking like that. Like, he would have a problem with it. And so we got that understanding. And I'm like, how do we take and communicate that this, what we see in the transgender, the cross-dressing thing, is blackface for women? How do we merge that together in some way to be like, see, get the point? These two are.
Well, I mean, there's not, what you're talking about is like an evenly applied standard. And that's
Never mind. In that case, we're doomed.
yeah. Wasn't it Biden who said they don't have just one standard, they have double standards, that's twice as good? I don't think he actually said
Oh
that.
man, that's good.
I could
That's
see him
good.
saying that.
Oh, man.
But it's the idea that you this putting on woman face, I think, is a good way of putting it. A lot of women, that was actually trending on Twitter the other day, woman face, because so many people were objecting to this stuff.
Oh, wow.
There is a lot of pushback on that. The problem is, it's the people that are in the positions of power that decide whether or not these things are wrong or right. And that can change. I mean, a lot of these people that are making these decisions were wearing blackface in comedy sketches, 10, 15 years ago,
Right.
in college photos and stuff like that. And they had no problem with it then, now they do. Who knows? Who knows what they'll have a problem with tomorrow? The problem is, the thing is, it's arbitrary.
Right.
They draw the lines wherever they want. They were on the wrong side of whatever lines they draw 2 days ago.
Right.
You'll be on the wrong side of them tomorrow. And so this is the problem when you divorce yourself from objective reality, from objective truth.
Right.
You end up floating around in space with no anchor. You don't know which way's up, which way's down.
Right.
And so you're never going to be able to apply standards evenly in an environment like that.
Which actually destroys humor.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's not a fixed reality and a shared standard, then you can't even tell a joke.
Yeah.
Because you don't, like, if you don't share a vision of reality, then you're not sure you're communicating.
It certainly destroys morality.
Right.
Because you can't say that any type of behavior is better than or preferable to another.
Right.
In an environment where you've detached yourself from objective
Right.
moral truth.
But gravity still works.
Yeah.
Right, so comedy still works, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so does morality, honestly.
yeah, exactly.
You still have the negative outcomes that come from deviating from the truth, and they will catch up to us. I mean, if you look at the transgender, you ask where it's going. Well, when you talk about like where it's going in terms of like pedophilia or whatever, that's one thing. But if you ask where it's going in terms of what the outcomes are for these kids, I think we're going to find 10 years from now, 15 years from now, these kids that are being transitioned at young ages, put on puberty blockers, then having surgical procedures at 15, 16, 17. Yeah. The whole thing is about, what they try to guilt you with is, if you don't do this, they'll kill themselves.
Right.
Right.
If you don't do it, would you rather have a dead son or a living daughter?
Right.
You know, that's what they say.
That's a Fox News report.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
But
then you get, let's fast forward 10 years down the road and see where this leads us. You know, I think it's going to lead us to death and despair.
Right.
On a massive scale with the way this is ramping up.
Right.
Jason Whitlock talks about this. He says, a few people who've had license in the society to speak clearly and they haven't. Pastors were one of them, and comedians were the other ones. Now, what's been really shocking to me
Who said this?
Jason Whitlock.
Okay, yeah, I know Jason.
Yeah, one that's been really shocking to me has been watching the fact that black comedians used to have a license to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about because they themselves were a protected class.
Yeah.
So they could say whatever they wanted to. And now this whole transgender thing and the cross-dressing and the drag queen story is hilarious. Has all kinds of jokes in it, and none of them will say anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except Dave Chappelle.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a
Except
couple of them.
like Dave Chappelle's the hero now. Like really?
Like, how did that happen?
He wasn't. No one would have
I've always
said
liked
10 years
him,
ago,
but,
like,
you know.
that's going to be the new Richard Pryor right there. That wasn't where it was going. What's happened to comedians, and what's it going to take for them to wake up and start telling the jokes? Because it seems like they're going to be the ones who help put shame back into the culture.
I love the way that you put that. I've said this before. It sounds negative. Bring back shame. I've said that many times. Bring back shame. You know,
Guilt and shame.
And not in the negative way where you're wanting people to be burdened with their shame, but there is in fact shameful behavior. The left believes there's shameful behavior. They think certain things are shameful.
You got kicked off because of what they consider.
You got to be ashamed of yourself.
Exactly. I should be ashamed of
Yeah,
myself.
right.
But the comedian is interesting. I had a conversation about this with Joe Rogan when he was talking about, before I came on his show, he was talking about how woke stuff is the funniest stuff, and he used a different word, but I won't use it here. Woke stuff is the funniest stuff. Comedians should be making fun of it, and they aren't. And the Babylon Bee is funny because it does.
Right.
I think, and this is what I argued with him, and he actually disagreed with me, but I think that comedians, satirists, probably even more so than comedians in general, but satirists in particular, have a moral responsibility to mock this stuff. I think we have a moral responsibility for it. And the reason I say that is because, you know, we have this crazy idea, somehow it got into our heads, that we're more moral as a society because we make fun of fewer things. We're hands off on stuff. We don't want to hurt people's feelings. You know, like, we're advancing, we're becoming more civilized, we're more sensitive to other. We're giving everybody a safe space. We're tolerant, we're loving, we're affirmative. But what ends up happening is you end up affirming and accepting what you should be ridiculing and rejecting. We're not ridiculing and rejecting these things that we should.
Well,
so, what it's led to is, and this is the way that I put it when I was talking with Joe, I said, the absurd has only become sacred because it hasn't been sufficiently mocked. The absurd has become sacred because I believe that's true. You know, these ideas, that the idea that a 3-year-old can transition, well, why is that a popular idea? How did we end up where comedians won't even touch that topic?
Right.
And now it's a mainstream thing that no one even thinks of. You know, kids soak up these ideas now and take them seriously. Why do we take them seriously? Well, because we didn't make fun of them when we should have.
That's right.
Well,
And
but
had we wouldn't be where we are.
We also didn't make fun of what came before that.
Right.
As we were talking about, we didn't make fun of the transgender dude. We didn't make fun of the gay lover. We didn't make fun of all the societal.
We didn't make fun of critical race theory.
But an important point to make, though, is when we talk about the mockery, you know, the way I frame it in terms of it's the moral case for mockery, right? The moral case for mockery. But we're not talking about mocking people to be mean and put them down and hurt them.
Right.
You know, because I've had people come up to me. I spoke recently at Stanford. I have no idea why they let me on Stanford campus. That's funny. I slipped through the cracks.
They didn't know who you were.
I guess not. I'm not popular enough to draw the big, you know, protests at Stanford. But they let me speak there. A bunch of students stormed out while I was in the middle of talking about how safe spaces are stupid, which is ironic.
Good job.
Oh, nice. Good.
But I did, at the end of my talk, I had one of the students come up to the microphone and ask me, how I sleep at night when I'm being mean by mocking people. She said she was bullied when she was younger, and that's all I'm doing is bullying people.
Right.
And I'm going to be responsible for deaths and suicide and all this stuff. And I said, look, there are harmful, bad ideas that need to be ridiculed. And it's not, and the key word there is ideas.
Right.
These are ideas that they're trying to plant in the minds of children.
Right.
Okay, we're trying to cultivate confusion in their minds and then treat it with irreversible damage. These surgeries that last for a lifetime. It's insane. If there's nothing more deserving of contempt and mockery than that.
Right.
And that's not mocking a person for their appearance or whatever. It's mocking an idea that deserves to be mocked.
Right.
And so you have to make that distinction between the two. The goal of it is not to make people hurt.
Right.
The goal is to prevent these children from being hurt by bad ideas.
Right.
I don't mind that being a distinction. But also, Jesus straight up mocked the Pharisees.
Well, that's what I was about to say.
So I think that it's a distinction of, where your serrated edge is going, the target that it is.
Yeah.
So who's your target matters.
Christian mockery must always remember that all people are made in the image of God.
Yeah.
And we're not to mock that.
Yeah.
But I think an image bearer who's doing something ridiculous, awful, that's going to bring mass
And
destruction
who's a leader in that movement
Can be
should be
mocked.
mocked.
That's actually where I want to go.
So here's the example that I gave this particular student who was saying, she was bullied. She said she was bullied because when she was younger, she had a really deep voice, she had buck teeth, whatever. It was her appearance. People were making fun of her appearance. And I said, okay, well, if you walked up to me and I made fun of how you look just to make you feel bad, that'd be pretty cruel. But if you came up to me and you told me that you were a man, and I said, no, you're a woman.
Right.
Am I being mean and cruel, or am I saying the truth?
Right.
I'm just saying the truth, and I'm not saying it to be hurtful.
Right.
It's not. That is not an insult. The same way it is to pick at someone's appearance and say, you're ugly.
Right.
I can't stand looking at you. You're hideous.
Yeah.
That's just mean.
Right.
But if you tell somebody the truth, that's not insulting them.
Right.
No.
When it comes to who they are, who God made them.
Right.
God made this person a woman. For me to affirm that is much more loving than affirming the lie that they're actually a man.
That's absolutely true.
But there's a certain place that serrated edge, when you take the tip of that and when you stab it into the people who, like for instance, in Little Mermaid, all I can think
That
about
sounds
is
like
the
a call to
witch.
violence right there.
No.
Metaphorical language.
There are
Parental
doctors.
warning.
There are doctors out there who want the souls of these kids.
Right.
There are people
And they'll
out
literally
there,
cut their
they
junk off to
will
get
cut.
it.
That's what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
those are certain groups of people that there are wickedness. That is the people who are killing these little babies in the womb, the people who are transforming themselves. There's a certain group of people out there that are not after any moral good. They are wicked, and we need to be able to mock them in that type of way that is going directly at them.
I like you. Sorry, one second. I
got it.
like the analogy of the knife, though. Like, think of the knife metaphorically, because this is what they're trying to suggest that we're doing as satirists. What they're trying to say that we're doing is we're running up to people and stabbing them to hurt them.
Right.
I look at satire very differently. I think satire uses a knife and it stings and it cuts.
Right.
But much more like a surgeon who's trying to cut out a cancer
That's right.
exactly
so that it doesn't kill the host.
That's right.
That's right.
So it's a cut with a healing purpose, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's not a cut intended to wound.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you look at a doctor out of context, maybe you zoom in a little bit too close, you can't see that it's a doctor, and you see him cutting flesh.
You
It
see
looks
blood.
like he's wounding
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah. Right.
But if you zoom out a little bit, you understand. Oh, this is someone who's working on a patient that needs healing.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are two very different things. And I think the moral concern of the satirist is to it's really what they're doing is we're wetting wit with moral concern and using the knife as a scalpel.
Yeah.
Jesus mocks the Pharisees for
And
their,
then the lawyer comes up and he mocks the lawyer.
for the long, their long robes,
Yeah.
their prayers in public, the way they give alms, blowing a trumpet. I'm about to give an offering. Everybody look. I mean, Jesus is a satirist.
Yeah.
He says that you tithe, on your spice rack and you're swallowing camels in your cereal.
Right.
He's mocking them, but not because he hates. He was very kind to Nicodemus, who's a Pharisee.
Right.
The woman at the well.
But I think what drove Jesus to mock? Love. loved
That's
it.
right.
I mean, he's telling the truth. What you're doing with these things, with your robes, with your prayers, with your almsgiving, with all these things, is crushing people.
You're devouring people.
You're devouring widows, even,
Yeah.
he says. I was also thinking with the scalpel language, you know, Paul in Galatians.
That's right.
I mean, he says, talking about Judaizers, these Christians who thought you had, they believe in Jesus, but they said you have to get circumcised in order to be a real Christian, like the inner circle Christian. And Paul says, you guys are messing up the gospel. Christ is enough. Christ is sufficient. Faith in Jesus is what gets you in. And he says, I just wish they would go the whole way.
Cut it all off.
Get this, be sloppy with the scalpel.
Yep.
And in the very next few verses, he talks about not biting and devouring one another, and making sure that your speech is gracious.
There's a certain target there
So
that he's going after.
Paul's not being schizophrenic there. Paul's saying what you're doing is you're mutilating the body of Christ. So maybe you ought to
Finish it.
do it.
Yeah.
But if that's not at all opposed to Christians who are committed to having purity in their speech.
Yeah, and to say some more. Blaine, I got to ask you, man. So you got to tell me, how long is it before you think Republicans go trans?
Oh, man.
We're in
Well,
Idaho, man.
yeah,
You're a prophet, so you're next. I want to know what you're talking about.
we're seeing it, right? I mean, look at what happened last legislative session in the state of Idaho. We had the bill to stop sex changes for kids, and we had the bill to ban porn in public libraries and schools where children can access it. And we had an entire body of our state legislature hold up those bills and make it impossible to get through.
Was that the Senate or the legislature?
That was the Senate.
Yep.
So
Predominantly Republican.
predominantly
So
Republican.
you're saying it's here?
I think it's here, man. I had conversations with Republican legislators who would tell me, Blaine, I don't want my kids to go through those sex changes, but I understand why a parent would do to. I get it. And we need to be compassionate toward those people. It's here. I mean, it's infiltrated us.
Blaine, I'm just thinking after listening to Seth, I'm on the board of the Idaho Family Policy Center. I think maybe we should think about hiring a satirist as one of our next hires.
We're expensive.
Can we add that to the fundraising goals?
I love it.
I'll pitch in on that one, whatever the budget is.
I love it.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, but I was going to ask you, if there was something that was going to stop the Republican Party from going trans, what would it be? Because it didn't stop them from going gay. But if it's already here, then how do you pull that back?
Well, I think just the egregiousness of having kids up on stage with drag queens was a pretty big wake-up call. The grassroots, they were angered, they were upset. Legislators who had become pretty comfortable with these topics were really starting to push back. I think that might be a turning point in the state that allows us to leverage and to make sure that these reforms get in place.
That's like the dude showing up at shop class.
No, it's the wake up
With
call,
the buxom,
man.
You
Yeah, for sure, it's the wake up call where you are almost falling off the cliff and you feel the rock start to.
So we actually had a real shake there.
I think so.
So then,
Interesting.
because I was going to ask, do we need to go ahead, at least in Idaho, do we need to say, well, it's time to clean out our legislator?
Oh, of course. Yeah, we always need to do that, right? The price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and when we use the term liberty, we talk about ordered liberty, right? The freedom to do that which is right, the freedom to act within the bounds of God's law. And if we're going to preserve that for future generations, we must clean house constantly.
They don't like you much, do they?
The Idaho Statesman came after you.
We actually just got written up, Blaine and I together. We're going to end up in the same cell.
Good partners.
I think, but the Idaho, what was it? The
Statesman.
Statesman,
They
down in Boise.
wrote up a story about us, and they said,
Unstatesman.
They said they were saying crazy things like, we believe that only the Christian God sent His Son to die for your sins.
Yeah, we're going to start sending the Mormons to the Holocaust.
Is that crazy?
That's crazy.
Right, and also we think that God's word should be the standard for public morality.
Yeah.
And what was funny in that article was that you guys are, Idaho Family Policy Center is trying to, ban transgender drag shows in Idaho. And then they compared that ban to, hey, Mormons, watch out. You could lose your right to vote in Idaho if Blaine gets his way eventually.
Talk about fear mongering.
That's what they compared, and it's unbelievable.
Well, they exaggerate everything. They suggested that the Roe v. Wade, the overturning of Roe v. Wade was a flat-out abortion ban across the board, and that it would criminalize miscarriage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's right.
Right, yeah. It's also criminalizing gravity and,
Yeah.
So do you think, so that you talked about Idaho, do you think that the Republican Party as a whole, do you think it's already gone that way too?
Yeah, I think so. So you had Ronna McDaniel, who is the chairwoman of the RNC, this year tweet out a celebration of Pride. The chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. I mean,
Of pride.
Well, because I don't think conservatives understand how much the homosexual tentacles have inroads in the Republican Party.
Well,
we've been talking about this. I mean, Daily Wire, The Blaze, Dave Rubin,
PragerU,
Jordan Peterson, PragerU, who we interviewed Dennis Prager a couple weeks ago. I mean, the homosexual influence is deep in the Republican Party. We had Denise McAllister on.
You got Trump. Who's running around with the gay flag.
Log cabin Republicans. He's throwing parties for log cabin Republicans.
Yeah.
So that makes me say, like, okay, you got Trump or DeSantis 2024. Who would you want? We were
first.
He's got a whole campaign for DeSantis. He's lined up.
Yeah, Florida, come on.
I absolutely love DeSantis. I want DeSantis to stay in Florida a little longer, being selfish.
That is selfish.
That's not very Christian of you.
I want to keep him.
Smart move.
Yeah, I mean, our state has benefited dramatically under his leadership. So, I mean, we were opened up when a lot of people were closed down. Now they're trying to say, Chris just said in their debate the other day that DeSantis was the only governor in Florida's history to lock down the state. Yeah. And he's like, Chris is the one, and Democrats in general wanted those lockdowns to go on indefinitely.
Yeah. Right.
And we would still be locked down if people weren't pushing back on that madness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to make my pick right now, but you were raising your
Where's
hand.
your prophecy and satirist spirit? Come on.
Keep an eye out for the jokes and see if you can try to discern where we're going with it.
Oh, nice.
Blaine.
Who you got?
Man, that's it. DeSantis obviously is an effective governor, right? He understands first principles in a way that maybe Donald Trump
He got
doesn't.
there. Let me just say he got there.
Yeah.
He understands first principles.
He did shut down his state.
He did?
He did.
Yeah.
In a way that.
Yeah.
Okay.
He got there. He got there, though. I'm happy where he's got.
So Gabe has, you know what Gabe's doing right now, right? He started a whole campaign
Patriots for DeSantis.
Patriots for DeSantis.
to try and push Trump out. Say,
He's trying to steal your
pasture.
governor.
And he wants DeSantis to come
So
in.
I started a grassroots movement to get Ron DeSantis.
It's just
elected.
him by himself.
But no. There's more
There's at least 30.
Your mom signed up. Okay, you got it. Sure.
And my sister. No. But here's
All three of his kids.
Here's the thing. Yeah, they didn't even know it. I started email
Put your
addresses.
name on this.
So I have this massive fleshly desire to see President Trump get elected and go in and just Quentin Tarantino all of DC. I would.
That's a verb.
Yeah, Quentin Tarantino it, you know.
Okay.
But I think, given the current situation, and I would like to see Trump get back on that horse. I mean, I think there's a number of reasons why I'd like to see Trump reelected. But I also think all his weaknesses in office are all of Ron DeSantis' strengths.
Yep.
And we need 8 years of that and not 4 years of Trump.
Yep.
I mean, we need 50 years of Jesus turning over tables in D.C. I mean, we just need a lot of work done. So I think Trump's weakness is what got him where he was in office with platforming Fauci and not dealing with any of that problem. The military, and a lot of that, I think, is what kind of got him out of office. I believe the election was rigged. But I also believe that
if we got canceled again.
And this ain't going on.
There we go again.
Yeah.
But I also believe
You ain't getting that YouTube, you ain't getting that Twitter channel back. I'm sorry to say.
You're done. But I also believe that even if the election wasn't rigged, Trump would have had a hard time getting reelected given his weaknesses and how he handled the pandemic and Fauci and all
All
that
right.
stuff. So, anyways,
Another question.
There we
Next, just general question. Big picture landscape. This is for both of you guys. So whoever wants to jump in first. Musk is taking over Twitter.
Yay.
Kanye is taking over
So white.
Parler.
Formerly
so white,
Kanye.
Toby.
Yee. Parler. Does this give you hope for free speech and the breakup of the Silicon monopoly?
Who should go first?
Go for it.
Well, I'm very optimistic about the state of speech and its future because I think that, a lot of we've been involved in this. I mean, we're part of the reason that Musk is taking this action, I think. He was worked up about the fact that we got suspended.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, he calls himself a free speech absolutist. I don't know exactly what he means by that.
Let's find out.
But it's got to be better than whatever's going on right now.
It's going to be tested.
Right.
He wants to see vigorous debate. Both sides represented, and that there should be healthy dialogue about these things rather than one side controlling the conversation. So if someone like him is in control of a platform like Twitter, I think it's a good thing. I do think that these platforms, if we're talking about where is the public square in the modern age, where does it exist? Is it a physical place in the town square, or is it a digital space now where where the vast majority of public discourse, not just between private citizens, but between government officials and private citizens, is happening?
Right.
It's online.
Yeah.
It's on these platforms.
Right.
It's on Facebook. It's on Twitter. It's on YouTube. Whatever. And so if free speech doesn't exist there, it doesn't exist anymore in the public square.
Mm-hmm.
So something needs to be done about that. And I think a lot of people understand that. I think Justice Thomas gets that. I think he's waiting on like the potential of common carrier doctrine applying to these platforms.
Right.
Some states are now passing legislation to try to make it illegal to prohibit, to engage in viewpoint discrimination on these platforms. So there is momentum moving that way. People are seeing the need because of all this cancel culture stuff, because of people like us getting banned from making a joke that happened to be true.
Right. Yep.
It's not just a joke, it's also true. This concerns people. It really fires people up. And so I think ultimately you are going to have the Supreme Court looking at this soon, because you had a decision in Florida with DeSantis' law where his law was struck down.
Okay.
And he lost his appeal.
By the Florida Supreme Court, or is it the federal?
It was the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals shot down his appeal to get his law to go through, which would deal with the discrimination problem on these platforms. In Texas, it was upheld at the 5th Circuit.
Okay.
So you have that split that's got to go to the Supreme Court.
Right.
They're going to have to take that case, I would say,
Right.
and make a decision there on which one is right, and how do we handle Section 230 and all of that.
Right.
So there's big stuff happening, and the court is composed in our favor right now, largely because of Trump and his picks. And that's where all of this comes to play, where your vote matters with these things, because your vote determines who picks these judges.
Right.
And these judges are making big decisions for
especially in our lifetime.
Yeah, big top speech.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So-
That was why I was willing to vote for him the second time.
Yeah.
I didn't vote for him the first time, but I did the second time. So, you gave me 3 good Supreme Court justices, or reasonable
Decent.
Right.
Supreme Court justices. So, absolutely. Blaine.
Yeah, so until that happens, where the Supreme Court does rule on it and we get true reform, I am not overly confident. I think what happened to Parler was a really big wake-up call. And you guys are really big on creating that alternative infrastructure, but we're not.
Have to. We're off. We got suspended by YouTube 4 times.
We got it,
Blacklisted from YouTube,
but we're not there yet, where we actually have that infrastructure in place. And just how quickly, there's so many different choke points that they can go after, whether it's the Amazon web hosting, or whether it's the App Store, or whether it's MailChimp or wherever. There's so many different choke points that it can be really hard to avoid the buzzsaw.
You know what surprised me about that situation too with Parler was that people didn't really get that worked up about it.
Yeah.
Parler got wiped off the internet.
Right.
Yeah.
Their servers were gone. They were pulled from the app stores.
Right.
They had no email service provider. They were just wiped out.
Right.
And people were like kind of upset about it for a few days.
Right.
And then the problem kind of just like went away, and then months passed, and then Parler popped back up and said, "Hey, we got back on the internet," and nobody cared.
Right.
How?
I think part of it was we got warmed up with Alex Jones and InfoWars and all that stuff happened. When they got taken down, it was like,
Oh, it's Alex.
and then it's Alex. And
Crazy Alex.
The way that they've been doing that, where everyone deplatformed them. Everyone, they went away. And I think for us, the way that our culture is designed, it's like it's hot for a minute, then it's gone, and then it happens to multiple people. It's not hot at all anymore. Right. And I think that we are just numb to those type of things. And they did it once. It was kind of like to someone who really we don't care about.
We're pop culture,
and
man.
then it's like, oh, that's bad. That's sad. That happened to them. Everybody did this, and then they do it to Parler. And it's like, and we go about our business. I think they warmed us up to the idea that they can do that, and we not really care much about it at all.
I also think the media did a really good job of making people scared to stick up for Parler, because Parler was the scapegoat for January 6th.
Yep.
And so everybody was. There were
true.
people,
They
even
get
people
buried
on the
in
right,
that.
who were afraid
Yep.
to even
Back up
stand
Parler.
up for that and say, "Oh, well,
Right.
Parler should be allowed to be on the internet." Oh, really? The insurrectionists should be
Right.
allowed to be
Yeah.
on the internet?
Yeah.
That's the power of the media
That's
to
true,
kind of
they did.
control what people are
That
okay
narrative.
with supporting.
Because they blame Parler for being the communication vehicle for everyone being able to gather January 6th.
Which is so ridiculous because the
more happened on
percentage.
Facebook.
Was there a higher percentage of people on Parler who were sympathetic to that? Sure, but there's a fraction of the people on Parler.
Right.
The amount of stuff that was going on Facebook, this stuff is being organized on Facebook too,
Right.
So
on much grander scale than Parler.
So this is kind of a two-part question. If Elon Musk is walking inside of Twitter with a sink, what is Kanye walking inside of Parler with?
Not his Adidas shoes.
Not his kicks.
Are you gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole or no?
No, I'm gonna pass.
Okay, so then you got these two guys.
First, I'm still not convinced that Kanye might close Parler.
Yeah. You don't think it's gonna go through?
I don't. I got some suspicion there.
Nevertheless,
But I do think Musk is going to close on Twitter.
you got guys who have money.
I mean, at this point, he's walking into
he's
headquarters.
walking into
His bio, I don't know if you saw today, his bio was updated on, it's Twit Chief now.
Yeah.
Or Chief
Chief
Twit.
Twit.
Yeah.
Chief Twit.
Chief
Yeah.
Twit.
So good.
Yeah.
Chief. I was making it like my
like it,
handle
yeah.
on Instagram is B Chief, so I guess I was
Yeah. There you
You
go.
saw
actually
that.
For Chief Twit.
hoping that he was copying me.
That's what it was.
Probably so.
Yeah.
Probably so.
Subconsciously.
Yeah.
Subconsciously.
Imitation.
Yeah.
So you got Kanye, you have Elon. They're buying these software companies, these social media companies. What do you think that Christians, if they could get their hands on something right now in the culture, what do you think they should be trying to buy? And you guys are in two different areas of thought. What do you think?
Good question, Knox. Yeah.
Pornhub, then shut it down.
Facts, bro.
Oh,
Facts.
oh.
Buy
Real
it.
talk.
Wait. Why could you not shut it down legally through the law?
Well,
I think it's an interesting play to buy it.
But that's a
shut it down.
great
I think
that's a great
good.
move.
That's a
Hey, I
good
want to
idea.
buy your company.
Right.
Yeah.
Buy the whole company and
saying.
just.
I mean, if you could think of my wife always jokes about if we drive by a restaurant that she hates, she'll sometimes say like, I wish I could buy the whole franchise to shut the whole thing down.
Yeah.
You know?
Why
like you
not?
really hate that restaurant.
Wow.
That's abnormal.
Wow.
But
You loathe that
we don't
restaurant.
think like that at all, though.
Counseling.
And you're like,
everything, just
not
let me know.
Chick-fil-A. Not Chick-fil-A, honey.
That's just what-
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, I don't know.
That's a good-
it is a good question though for a serious. If someone wants to give a serious answer.
That's
That's a
a
good
serious
answer.
answer as far as I'm concerned.
I think we as Christians need to go after the chambers of commerce. That is in many states one of the
you can't
largest.
buy it.
I know you can't buy it, but you can slowly but surely overtake it, right? And that's one of the largest lobbying groups in many states. You know, historically they were nominally Republican. I wouldn't even call it conservative.
Yeah.
But today, I mean, they have gone so far woke. They are the ones in Georgia or in Florida or in other states that are pushing back hardest against the conservative reforms, whether it's pro-life laws, whether it's stuff dealing with LGBT issues. I mean, look at what happened in North Carolina with the bathroom law a handful of years ago, right? I mean, that was the Chamber of Commerce that was leading the push,
Yep.
and ultimately they were successful in getting that law repealed.
Yeah.
We have corporate lobbies that have more power than government, and I don't think our founders ever anticipated that.
Something important about the Twitter thing, real quick, before we move on from that, with what Musk did. I think what Musk did was a good play with taking over a platform that already has everybody on it.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of conversation. His text got revealed and all this discovery and everything, and there was discussion about him starting his own platform. And that was something that he was weighing, and he did a Twitter poll about it. Should I start a platform, that kind of stuff. And I think that it was smart to buy Twitter, because if he were to create a free speech platform, who's going to join it?
Yeah.
Who honors who cares about free speech? Well, conservatives like free speech, libertarians like free speech.
Right.
But not
nobody
liberals.
left of center
Right.
likes free speech.
Right.
Yep.
They hate. It's not hate speech that they have a problem with. They just hate speech in general. So they're not going to want to join a platform like that. They haven't joined Parler. They haven't joined Truth Social. They never will.
Right.
If you set up a new platform that's just geared towards free speech, it will never be the public square. It will be an echo chamber where you're just talking with people that
Which
you
is what
agree
you're
with.
kind of seeing with Gab and Parler.
Yeah,
and,
it's like-minded
and
people.
Truth
Yeah.
Social.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's a move there too. It's like the purchasing is. I think there's places to start something new and lead the way, but I think that it is a place where you say, I'm going to lead. I'm going to take this, and you're going to follow me. And the leftists tend to do that quite a bit more than we do.
Yeah.
Quite a bit more often than Christians do. Seth, what do you think I saw in your bio? I cut it, but I saw it that you've overtaken the onion. Is that right?
That's right.
Bigger than the onion.
Way to go.
Which is awesome. What do you think the influence of the Babylon Bee is today, like on our country?
In what respect? Like how we're affecting people's thinking on things?
Yeah.
Are you pushing the needle?
Social moral imagination.
Are you pushing the needle?
I don't know. Honestly, I think our influence has been bigger on the free speech issue than anything else because of the stand that we took, not deleting that tweet, energizing and emboldening people to take a stand with us, and then motivating in part. I'm not taking full credit for it, but like playing a factor in Elon Musk's decision-making process to take like this stuff that's happened as a result of the decisions that we've made to stand up for our right to make the jokes you're not supposed to make anymore. I think has been more impactful than the jokes themselves, which is interesting because we never expected, when I got involved in a comedy site that makes jokes on the internet, I never expected to be like on the front lines of a battle for the preservation of freedom and the restoration of sanity in our country. I just thought we were going to make people laugh and maybe make a little bit of money doing it. And
here you are.
There is a lot of impact in terms of, we do get emails from people all the time who tell us, thank you for bringing levity into my life, my dying mother was laughing until her last days, reading Babylon Bee headlines while she had cancer. You brought joy and light into our life. Like that kind of stuff is amazing, the impact that we have. But in terms of like the wide scale impact on culture, I think mocking bad ideas is important and necessary, and we're doing that effectively, and they're trying to shut us up for doing it. But it's the speech thing, I think, where we've moved the needle the most.
Are you bringing? I mean, you said earlier, which I really like, bringing shame back. I mean, is the Babylon Bee bringing any shame back?
Well, I mean, we're exposing foolishness and making the powers that be look foolish very effectively. And they hate that, by the way. They can't stand that. And you can tell that they're the powerful ones because they're the ones who have the capability of shutting you up when you make so much as make a joke about them, right? But yeah, I mean, exposing that foolishness with mockery and enraging them, I don't know that it's necessarily bringing shame back. I don't know that they're feeling ashamed about it, but it is exposing them. It's exposing them not just for their foolishness, but also for their tyrannical tendencies.
And I think you're making a group of people feel bold again. It's having a backbone. It's like, I'm gonna stand with these guys. That's huge. That's huge. Culture morale.
I hope so.
What do you think is next for your neck of the woods?
Man, so I mean, right now, we got as many fires as we can put out on the drag stuff, on the trans stuff, on the gender stuff. I mean, it's just we've lost our minds, and I think that is where the battle is raging hottest right now. That Idaho Statesman editorial that we were featured in ended with a conclusion about the gospel, and I think that was a relevant topic to discuss in an editorial about gender, right? Because I mean, this really cuts to the heart.
Actually, thank you for at least getting that part right.
This is cuts to the heart about God's good design and our rebellion against Him, right? And our need for a Savior and our need for redemption and deliverance and salvation. And so I think for the foreseeable future, Christians just need to lean in to this fight against the radical gender ideology, because as Martin Luther says, you show yourself to be a faithful servant by fighting where the battle wages hottest.
Thank both of you guys for doing this with us.
Appreciate you guys very much.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until next time, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is CrossPolitic.
Hi, I'm Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations, the world's largest classical Christian homeschooling community. I'm launching a new podcast, Refining Rhetoric. If you like CrossPolitic or just listen to hear what crazy stuff they're saying today, you will enjoy Refining Rhetoric. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform. I practice the 15 tools of learning by interviewing great guests, looking at current events, and talking about cryptocurrency.
What separates New St. Andrew's Classical Christian Studies program from some other programs? Most importantly, we're not an education degree. So at New St. Andrews, you're not going to see seminars in the mechanics of instructional delivery. At the same time, we're not a specialist degree either. where if we're going to pursue, say, a degree in English literature or history, you do receive a pretty wide dosage of the Western liberal arts, unlike most graduate level degrees. I call our courses advanced introductions. They're introductory in the sense that our students might be being exposed to this material for the first time. It may be the first time that you've read Anselm or Augustine. But you're not going to be exposed to this Anselm or Augustine like an 18-year-old undergraduate. You're going to understand and realize that Augustine has been read for over 1,000 years. There's been over 1,000 years of reflection, and you're going to learn how to join in a scholarly conversation surrounding texts and works that have been conversed about, discussed, and read for a long, long time. That's really graduate level approach then. So it's introductory and then it's first time exposure, but a deep dive nonetheless.